Now that we're nearing the end of 2025, I sort of want to talk about some of the tech that really shined for me throughout this past year, specifically pertaining to what my New Year's resolution was this past January. Where typical resolutions wants you to be, more productive, work harder and all that, I literally went the opposite direction with my resolution and simply wanted to just slow down more and allow myself some more time to relax. Now, throughout this year, I've actually uploaded less videos, I've been focusing on quality versus quantity, and I've actually picked up some new hobbies alongside spending more time with my absolute favorite hobbies, such as music and gaming. Now with that, this is going to be specific items that just helped me achieve that balance a little bit better, and of course, nothing in this video whatsoever is sponsored. These are all my personal thoughts and items completely. Now, the first one I sort of wanted to talk about is actually a bit of an underdog for me specifically because I absolutely hated the Nintendo Switch 2 when it first came out, and I actually did a review on this maybe 3 weeks ago, talking about how I went from hating it to absolutely loving it, and naturally, just a couple weeks later, that still stands. Amongst all my current gaming systems, whether that's my Beast-ass PC, my PS5, my Xbox, between all of these, I actually play my Switch 2 the most right now, just because of how accessible it is to game. What I mean by that specifically though is, as a dad of two and as somebody who works full time, I have a family, I run this YouTube channel, I really do struggle with time management. And the Switch 2 literally just allows me to game pretty much anytime and anywhere. The graphics are not going to be any better than any of the systems I mentioned, and frankly, the game options are going to be a little bit more limited, but this system alone, because of how easy it is to sort of pick up and put back down, has made a huge difference in how much I've been able to game over this past year. This system truly doesn't focus on fidelity, it doesn't focus on specs, it just focuses on actually making gaming fun again, for me at least, especially with some of the Nintendo titles and some of the ports like Cyberpunk, which were incredibly impressive for myself. And for me, it's just going to be those small things like playing Mario Kart or Donkey Kong Bonanza with my 5-year-old, or just playing something like Hogwarts Legacy in bed. I put this one first on my list mainly because it's just been largely surprising, and again, it went from me hating it, like I really did hate it, to loving this thing all within a span of 1 year. Based on the comments on my review for the system as well, being that I'm new to Switch, it looks like I will be playing Breath of the Wild next once I finish off my current game selection. Now I'm going to talk about more about gaming and stuff as well, but I want to move this over to what surprisingly is what I think is the only true iPad left, and that's going to be the iPad Mini 7. Similar to how my Switch is nowhere near as powerful as my PC or my PlayStation 5, this thing pretty much doesn't hold a candle to my M5 iPad Pro, but to me it's by far the best iPad Apple has ever made simply because of its portability, yet it is still ridiculously powerful. Now the thing about this iPad is that, like some of the other ones, it's not trying to be this super ridiculous powerhouse of a tablet, it's literally just trying to be a tiny ass tablet, and I love it specifically for that. One of the new hobbies I picked up in 2025 is actually reading, and I really haven't read much since I was like maybe 8 or 9, and I really have read the majority of my books this year on this device. I primarily read the entire Red Rising series, which was absolutely crazy by the way, and the only reason why I read that is because of all your recommendations, but I am having a hard time finding something new to read because that series was a little bit too good, so if you have a new recommendation, please let me know. Still separately from all that, of course, this thing is incredible for the times I want to be a 12-year-old again and sort of color while watching anime, or otherwise FaceTiming with the grandparents with my kids. All those things are flipping incredible on this iPad. I can also keep socials off my phones, and for most of the year, I'm actually using a Dumbphone. So this iPad gives me things like iMessage, of course FaceTime, and things like social media for the times I do allow myself permission to sort of get lost in social media, and the iPad Mini 7 has been the easiest and best iPad for that. As well, it seems to be gathering a bit of a cult following. For me, it's just one of those tablets that's not focusing on productivity, and it just allows me to decompress and give myself permission to slow down a bit. Now, just as my iPad Mini 7 allows me to stay connected for the times I want to disconnect, I actually primarily use a Dumbphone 90% of the time, and while I still love reviewing smartphones, and I'm incredibly passionate about them still, I recently checked out the iPhone Air, I checked out the OnePlus 15, I love reviewing smartphones, but I still primarily use a Dumbphone to curb my screen time. For myself, it's mostly one of 3 devices. It's going to be my Light Phone 3, my Medita Compact for the times I want to use e-ink, or something a little bit more niche like my Sleek phone, which is a good balance between smart and dumb. And I'll sort of touch on this one separately a little bit because it's so niche. And here is where I do end up sounding like a bit of a pretentious douchebag, because for me, it really does just change almost every aspect about my life. I end up sleeping better, I'm more productive, I'm simply more creative, and by using a dumb phone, I'm comparing myself less to other creators or people in general, and I truly do just focus more on what's around me versus other people who don't even know I exist, if that makes any sense. It's by far way less convenient than using a smartphone, of course, and I truly am late to pretty much everything when it comes down to news or new tech releases or whatever else. But if we're talking about slowing down, this single-handedly is the most impactful thing towards that. Naturally, of course, I could just delete all the apps off my smartphone, and that's probably the way to do it for most people, but for myself, that's the equivalent to just buying a crap ton of junk food, still keeping it in my pantry, and constantly telling myself no. In this case, why have the temptation in the first place if I can just use something like a Dumbphone? And I know the argument is to just have more willpower, and for anybody arguing that, I'll go ahead and tell you, yes, you are correct. We could all just have a little bit more willpower. That doesn't change the fact that some people simply don't want to have that willpower in the first place if they don't have to. Still, a lot of these Dumbphones are bloody expensive, I will mention, and their cameras are pretty shitty if I'm completely honest. And while sometimes the footage or the photos can look a little bit charming depending on how you look at it, they're still not going to compare to a smartphone. And still, for the times I really do just want to connect, I'm still happy to dive into my iPad mini 7, like I mentioned. For any sort of social media and stuff, I do still find the iPad a little less doom scrolly. But to jump back into gaming as well, and I've talked about my game consoles a ton this year, mainly because I've actually shifted away from PC gaming a little bit more over this past year. I can't say I've given up on PC gaming because I still love to jump in here and there. I love to play my World of Warcraft, my Overwatch, and I even pre-ordered the next World of Warcraft expansion because I still dig PC gaming, but I truly do just enjoy the couch and controller experience overall. For myself, if we're talking about relaxing and sort of slowing down, for me, it's just a better option. As an accountant, a part-time creator, I spend an absurd amount of time with a mouse and keyboard every single day. So sometimes just picking up a controller is a little bit more relaxing. And again, this piggybacks off of my time with the Switch too. It's just so flippin' convenient. Where I'm at in life right now, at least, is to simply enjoy myself while gaming and not really caring as much about specs and power, and sort of going back to how gaming was when I was a kid. You would just flip on your console, you didn't pixel peep, you didn't really give a shit how powerful the system was, you just enjoyed your games. And that's sort of what my consoles bring me back to right now. For myself, it's actually been a mix of different consoles as well. It's been the Xbox Series S throughout this year, the Xbox Series X, the PlayStation 5 and PS5 Pro, and naturally, of course, my Switch 2. All of these are objectively far worse than my RTX 4090 PC, but right now, again, I'm just chasing that experience over power, and all of these do a damn good job. The reason I split these consoles up from my Switch specifically is because they actually still do a little bit more than my Switch 2, whereas they're sort of an all-in-one entertainment system, and I want to highlight that a bit because it really makes a big difference for me. Each of these systems give me things like Netflix, Apple Music, and all those apps that I love to use when I'm diving into watching any sort of media or content, or literally just vibing out and listening to music. I love these consoles for their native applications, and I wanted to just mention that specifically. And of course, these systems do incredibly well when it comes down to gaming. I've particularly been enjoying my Series X and PlayStation 5 with the disc drives because I recently got back into physical media for both video and games. And I really do feel like a bit of a broken record at this point, but your local library is practically blockbusters at this point, so I love renting Blu-rays, vibing out, and just watching a movie off a Blu-ray or something. Between media, gaming, all the apps and all that, these consoles really are absolutely incredible. Plus, the way PC parts and pricing on RAM and SSDs are going, console value proposition seems to be getting better day over day, but we'll see how that goes. Now, talking about me being a broken record in physical media and all that, of course, while not really in the same realm as tech released even in the last 2 decades, I simply love my vinyl record player. I truly just get a sense of peace knowing that I actually own every single record I have, and I just love listening to an album front to back. And don't get me wrong, I'm still an absolute slut when it comes down to Apple Music and all of my playlists and all that stuff, but changing song to song on a playlist doesn't always translate to the same vibe or feeling that an entire album can pull you through front to back. That isn't to say you can't just pick a full record on your Apple Music and play it, but there is something special for me about using vinyl, and there's a reason that it is having such a huge resurgence for people like myself, where music really is an absolute massive part of my personality and who I am. And you might have seen it in pretty much every video I make. I do my little ritual when it comes down to getting ready to game or just sort of relax, and I make some dope ass coffee, I throw in a vinyl record, and just get down to business. My only regret is actually just not having started my collection a little bit sooner. I'd love pretty much every single genre of music, from punk rock to metal, soul, country, blues, whatever, you name it. Every single time I pick up a record and put it on, I am making that intentional decision to listen to it versus whatever shuffling a playlist would give me. And for me, that slows me down a bit. Now, this next one is pretty much unlike anything I've ever really talked about on this channel because I don't really review creator gear, but I love my Fuji X106 camera. Again, for the majority of the year, I'm on a Dumbphone, so the cameras are pretty trash, so I've gotten used to just anchoring myself to into my Fuji camera just to have good video and photos wherever I go. Where this camera comes in terms of how it actually slows me down and stuff, unlike something like my iPhone Air, for example, where I can just smash my shutter button non-stop, a camera like this sort of actually makes me think about composition and exposures and stuff, and all these things sort of go into what makes a good video or photo. Frankly, I actually bought this camera specifically for its video capabilities because of how small this bloody camera is, and even today there's still nothing quite like it. Now, it did release in 2024, so even today I think you can get a little bit close to it in size and performance, but still not quite technically. For anybody who's into photography or videography at all, this tiny ass camera can do 4K, it can do log shooting, it has a built-in ND filter, it has in-body image stabilization, and of course it's tiny as hell, and I love it specifically for that reason. And this sounds a little bit lame and artsy and pretentious to a degree, but having a fixed focal length just sort of makes you be a little bit more creative with a lot of the stuff you're shooting, and I absolutely love the images and video coming out of this camera. And again, because of what it is, fundamentally, it slows me down a bit, and I have become a bit of a camera nerd over the last couple years. I flippin' love this thing. And sort of piggybacking off of my vinyl and coffee ritual, I recently did get this new espresso machine from Meraki. As much as I love my K-Cups and my kids love making me coffee with that machine and all that, I truly adore the ritual behind making coffee myself. I love going to my local coffee store and roastery and exploring all the different types of beans. I love trying new brands. I love dialing in the perfect grind whenever I'm pulling an espresso shot, and this machine really does replace my previous Breville machine, which was a little bit more entry level, so this is definitely a massive upgrade and I love it. One of my first jobs was actually being a barista on a massive big ass commercial machine worth like 30 grand, and even back then I loved the process of making coffees, and that definitely carries in today, being able to pull a perfect shot, steaming milk, and all that fun stuff. Plus this thing actually just looks flippin' badass, and it really is a good machine in general. Again, similar to music, coffee really is just a huge part of who I am, so this fits right in. For the next one, I do gotta say it's probably cheating if I'm completely honest, so I won't spend too much time on this one because it's not really tech if we're being real, but I really am a note-taking degenerate. It doesn't matter if it's for work, it doesn't matter if it's for personal writing, I'll even use my iPad as well, but I actually write a lot with pencil on paper specifically. For this, I lean heavily into my expensive ass pencil set, which I do use both for journaling and of course everything else. Pretty much every single YouTube video I make starts with a paper scratch, and then I typically dump all of those thoughts into digital and go from there. And while Grovemade stuff is insanely expensive, it really is, I've always been a bit of a Grovemade fanboy because of the quality, so I do have their pencil set. I've recently got their heavy ass metal ruler set as well. I'm just huge into this stuff, so it does make a difference for myself, and despite the expense, it actually matters to me. And for my dudes out there whose brain won't stop racing the second you put your head on your pillow at night, honestly, just try journaling. Try and get what's on your mind onto a piece of paper, even if it's just doing something like jot notes, that still counts as journaling. I have these tiny ass books that I personally love because of how small they are. The pages are tiny, so it's less intimidating to just pick it up and start, but just throw down a couple jot notes, that counts as journaling, and I really do dig it. Before this video gets too long, I do have some honorable mentions to sort of finish this whole thing off, and the first one I want to talk about is the Apple flipping earpods. I am the biggest AirPods fanboy, and I've been using these into the flippin' ground, but earpods just simply work. There's no pairing, there's no charging, you don't have to worry about anything with these. You literally just plug them in from one device, you plug them into the next, and they just work. These actually sound fantastic, and the microphone on here is surprisingly great as well. And of course, while the cable is a little bit more cumbersome, I've started to get a little bit used to them, sort of like I did for the first 25 years of my life using audio devices, and I've been slowly using these a little bit more and more. Now, the last one I want to talk about completely is something called the Sleek Phone, which is actually incredibly niche, so not a lot of people know about it, and some people actually hate on this thing for what it is, but honestly, it's a good bridge between smart and dumb. Pretty much what this is, it's a very curated and locked off Google Pixel where you literally cannot download social media or any of those apps. They have their own app store where it's literally just utility based or modern usable apps that don't really have those infinite feeds that get lost in, and it just gives you everything day to day. So what this thing is, it ends up being perfect for somebody who still needs a lot of applications for a modern 2025, but also doesn't really give you the pressure knowing that you could just download Instagram or TikTok whenever the fuck they want, because this phone won't even let you do it. Talking about that pantry I mentioned, you can't eat junk if it's not there in the first place. Again, going back to the debate, can't you just delete your apps? Of course you can, just delete your apps. For most people, that's probably the better way to go because it's free. Anyways, that's a ton of wacky ass tech and technically non-technical items that really helped me sort of slow down throughout this year, and I'm happy I was able to take my foot off the gas pedal a little bit throughout this past year. By far, 2025 has been the healthiest year to date in terms of living a little bit slower, and that's the best way I can put it. Mental health has improved. I'm not necessarily physically healthier, but that's another video for another day. I will have everything linked down below if you do want to check it out. I appreciate you guys hanging out till the end of this video. I appreciate you watching. Till next time.